Hey friends, welcome back to Black Queer Unapologetic. I'm JoJo, and keeping with the theme of February, today we're going to be talking about relationship dynamics. And as a single person and someone who's been single for a while, I thought it'd be interesting to speak to someone who had a different experience than myself. So today I'll be chatting with my old friend Brian. Brian's a Filipino immigrant. He's born and raised in the Philippines in Manila, and he moved to America in 2007. Since moving to the U.S., he's mostly been in California, but a few brief assignments in Texas and Mississippi, where he was in the U.S. Air Force. Today, Brian is a legal assistant in San Francisco and in his third year of a 4-year ministry education program. He's serving in various fundraising efforts like Cheer San Francisco, Broadway Bears, Bear Chest Calendar, among others. And in April 2024, he performed in drag for the very first time under the name Anita Martini. Let's get into it.
Ay, black, queer, unapologetic. Black, queer, unapologetic. I know who I am, now you know what I'm about. I say the thoughts in my head out loud. Let's get into it, let's pick up the flow though. Brought to you by the one they call JoJo. Black, queer, unapologetic. Black, queer, unapologetic. Let's go.
Hi, Brian.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great. It's been a while, and it's been a day too.
Yeah. I'm actually I heard right now. So, yeah. And you're living in San Francisco now?
I am living in San Francisco. I live in the South of Market neighborhood, where it is the Filipino cultural district. So I feel very at home, even though I'm not as Filipino as I want to be, to be honest.
What does that mean?
You know, I so I was born and raised in Manila in the Philippines, and when I say that I'm not as Filipino as I want to be, like I'm not like just like for example, last Christmas I didn't make it to the Parole Festival, which the Parole is it's sort of like a Filipino lantern. It's like a star, and it's like decked out, it's embellished, and it is something that Filipinos look forward to in during the Christmas time. And so I didn't even get to do that last year because I was so busy. And so when I say I'm not as Filipino as I want to be, I'm like, girl, why are you too busy to engage with your cultural background? So hopefully this year we can change it.
Yeah. I feel like as we get older, we start to lose touch with a lot of things that we used to enjoy. And, you know, it's not the best. I feel like a kid again.
It's a struggle. It's hard, because like the greater culture, I think, is like, do this. This is what makes you happy. This is what you should enjoy. But you gotta be your own person.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I wanted to talk to you about relationship dynamics because you are somebody that I've known for a really long time. And I know that you are aware that I've gone through my ups and downs with relationship things over the years, and you've given me some advice and some tough love in the past, so I look for forgetting that. But I think that there are people, especially like in the LGBTQ community, that are struggling with their own ideas around dating, I guess, and what might be the best thing for them, and like how do these things work because they've never been in that situation. I don't have the best dating history, so I don't consider myself qualified to give dating advice, but I can give life advice, which can kind of translate into the dating world. And, just like how people should be their best selves and like present and show up in the world that way and in their relationship. And so I kind of just wanted to talk to you because I feel like you're somebody that I think is pretty honest and upfront about the way things have progressed, like in as far as like the dating world in your life and things like that. So I just wanted to, reconnect with you and maybe you can help me out with that.
I'd love to. It was a struggle. I think we I think we as humans, we love the idea of kind of going on our own adventure and finding things out for ourselves. I mean, it takes a particular kind of personality to be like, I want to learn from my mistakes. And it requires a kind of honesty to be able to say, yeah, I screwed that one up, or I did not show up in my best self on that one. When when I mean, I've had long-term relationships. I've had two that I can think of that were, at least in my mind, were relationships that were long-term in the sense that I was committed in it. That the Brian that showed up on those relationships were ones that really wanted to be in the relationship. Because I think when we were growing up, there was this phase where it's like, oh yeah, I'm new to this dating scene, trying out new things. Do I really know what I want? Okay, I feel like I know what I want, and so I'm gonna pursue it. But you don't really know that that's not what you want until you tried it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
think I mean for me, I'm still trying to figure out what I want. Um Occasionally I change my mind, but I think that that's okay.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I want to date, and nah, I don't really want to right now. But oh, I want to do this, or no, I'm not really into that anymore. So still trying to figure it out for like the long term because I've also only been in two relationships, but they haven't been long term. Like real relationships where it's like, okay, we were committed to each other, and we called each other's boyfriends, and spent extended times together and that kind of thing. But a lot of other ups and downs of things that didn't materialize into relationships, and just a lot of dates and time spent that didn't really turn into anything. That's not the funnest time.
No, yeah, definitely not. No, I remember. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, it isn't it fascinating that like it feels like just in this last 2 minutes, like the thing that I'm realizing, the thing that's coming up for me is like we define long-term relationships as relationships where we are committed, where it feels like we're showing up to it with a particular kind of mindset. That you're not just sort of like, oh yeah, you're my boyfriend, you're this or that, but a particular kind of showing up. And we can go on dates with people several times, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be categorically
Yeah.
committed relationship. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I never accept that, but I put myself out there and I go on the dates, and I've trained myself to not expect anything from it. I just go in with the best intention of, showing up as my best self, and then trying to make sure that I'm not trying to create an expectation for them.
yeah,
It was like, okay, the only real expectation is just tell me the truth. Like, let's be honest with each other, and that's pretty much it. If it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, then
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Would you
curious.
like to share about your recent date or the last date that you went to where you
Um, yeah, you know what? I will. There was a particular guy. It started as a hookup. I'll put it that way. So it started as a hookup. Hookup went well, all that stuff. And then we went on two dates.
Mhm.
And after the hookups, like, so that happened, and then um we ended up like hanging outside of the bedroom for once.
Oh,
And then we went on a second date, and it was fun. I thought that like it was good. I thought we enjoyed each other's company. Like the sexual aspect of everything was good as well.
mm,
Uh, Again, I went in with no expectation though.
mm,
Um, and I actually mentioned this on a previous episode too, just like, but I didn't just go into as much detail. But he decided that he no longer wanted to hook up anymore. And then he also decided that he was no longer, or I guess not as interested in me sexually as he previously thought he was, which
mm,
to me, it sounded like it was bullshit, to be honest. I was just like, okay, like this is weird because you've seen me multiple times. Like, I don't understand like how the physical aspect can change in that way.
mm,
If it was a personality thing or whatever, I mean, he said something that wasn't 100% accurate. Maybe he thought that he was like my personality more, and he didn't want to like offend me or anything like that. But then he kind of, I don't know, talked about my physical appearance anyway. Um, And then he just said that he wanted to be friends, and I had to drag the information out of him, and I just felt like this is a lot of work. Um, I feel like I would not want to be friends with somebody like that, and I wasn't mad about it. I was just basically like, I'm not gonna let you make the decision for me. Uh, we're not gonna be friends because you want to be friends because you decided that we no longer can hook up or we can no longer date. And so I just decided we're not gonna be friends. I'm not mad at you. Um, it is what it is,
Totally. Yeah.
and that's it. We don't have to fake a friendship in order to be, friendly with each other. Like we can be friendly and not be friends.
Yeah.
We don't have to pretend that we're gonna hang out. So I mean, it was fine. I wasn't mad about it at all.
Yeah.
He was a little taken back by my reaction though, but I was just like, dude, I just I don't know what you want me to say. Like, I mean, because I could say we're gonna be friends, but are we really actually gonna be friends?
Mhm.
Probably not.
Because I feel like that's such a unique uh um course of action, because I think in our community, or kind of in the culture, the Bay Area culture, San Francisco culture,
Mhm.
we're sort of afraid of confrontation.
Yeah.
It's like we don't want to say like, I'm not really attracted to you, or like, I don't really see you that way, in that way. And so I get the whole ghosting culture. I don't particularly like it, especially if you're in the receiving end. But I get the fear from being honest and being vulnerable and being transparent about your own needs. And so for you to say that, and for you to be like, I don't think this is really going to work out, because I am a person that has agency, and it doesn't mean that I
Mhm.
am along with this simply because you said so. I think that's really admirable.
I wish more people were like that, to be honest. Because a lot of times we get put into situations that we did not create for ourselves. We get put in them because people put us in them. And if we could like learn to advocate and speak up for ourselves, we wouldn't be in that situation, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah.
So I am aware that as a black person and as like a larger body person, you know, it can come off a little intimidating or aggressive, or like it can rub people the wrong way for me to behave that way.
Mhm.
But I think my intention behind it's not to be um mean or disrespectful or anything like that. It's really just to just be honest. You
Yeah.
know? And so if someone takes it that way, I just kind of have come to terms with the fact, well, if they take it that way, there's nothing I can do about it because I've had the best of intentions. And I've also delivered this message in a way where I was not trying to be malicious in any way, you know? And so if they take it that way, I can't control it. So I just let it go.
Yeah. I heard that in the straight world, and when they make decisions about, that when straight folks make decisions about who they're gonna date, I think there was a research where it was like, when we make decisions about dating or who we find we are sexually or emotionally compatible with, it is also an economic decision, because, when you date someone, there's no way that you're not making a decision about like how much time you're going to spend time with them, whether you're going to build a future with them, whether you're going to have children with them. Because imagine if we didn't take those things into consideration, how much time we are going to waste, sort of like just playing around, and without any sort of objective. And so yeah, I mean, it's a tough world. We gotta get to work when we
Yeah.
want. This needs to be met.
Well, I want to know how you met your exes because you've had a lot more luck in relationships than I have, and I'm curious, what am I doing wrong? Because
That's a very good question. So oh my God, this is so long ago. So I dated somebody beginning 2008. So that relationship was for 3 years.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, we met on Craigslist.
Oh
You
wow,
remember that?
yeah.
Oh my God, millennials. It started as a hookup, actually, and we we were both young. we we had physical needs, and so we met in that way, in that regard. And at some point I was like, do you want to see each other again? And so I think it resonates with kind of like your story, because it's like it started as one thing and then you find that this person may have a potential, and so you kind of want to explore it. And I think that's what happened to me. um and this was, I was fresh from the Philippines. I have not met a lot of people yet, and yeah, I really gave this one a chance. We were together for 3 years. We did this whole thing where we lived together. I met his family, he met mine. um but I think ultimately it did not work out because I was a person of color and he was white, and I felt that
Uh,
he was just there were particular personality traits that made me go, "Oh my God, that was a red flag.
mhm.
You should not have stayed with him for that long." And so, while yes, it did accumulate time, we had 3 years together. There were a lot of moments where I was like, "All right, this is not sustainable.
Yeah,
I this is going well for now, but I can see kind of in the future that this is not the long term one."
yeah. Has that happened? I mean, it happens to me all the time. Like as far as being a person of color and dating other people, and then there's also a situation where I'm dating other people of color, but I'm black, and maybe they haven't dated a black person before, so there's like a hurdle there too. So I'm curious, like, does that same thing happen to you, where you dated people who maybe were not Filipino, who they maybe don't understand your culture, or they like say or do things that like rub you the wrong way, that is just like instant turn off?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's the subtle things, So say for example, in Filipino culture, we have the balut, which is 21-day-old egg. It's partially fertilized. And so it really is a Filipino delicacy. Um and it's gross, I think, for the predominantly Western culture, which I understand. However, like, there is a way to say, I'm not really into it, but more power to you, versus somebody saying like, this is gross, your culture is gross. Why are you eating this?
Yeah,
And so I think fundamentally, like, there is, even though there's a difference in culture, it comes down to the person's personality, if they
okay.
are respectful of a culture that they don't know.
Yeah. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And you can be very respectful and respectfully decline.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. There were moments when it was the quirky things where he would ask me, "How do you spell the word sandwich again?" And so I would tell him. But then when we would get in a fight, he would say things like, "Learn to speak English."
Oh no.
Excuse me?
Absolutely
Ask
not.
me how to spell a very simple word.
Yeah.
So those red flags. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a particular person, I will not name them.
Ooh.
Um, you actually know this person, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know. You do the math, but no, but they used to make fun of the way that I would speak too. And I feel like, I grew up in Richmond and I grew up in the hood, and I freaking cuss a lot, and I, you know, don't say words in the dictionary textbook way of saying words all the time. So like I would say like I'm gonna, or I'm finna, or it's just like shortened versions of words that are not actual, like, you know, uh the usual contractions of words, I guess. And I still speak like that most of the time. And then there's other times where I'm at work where I'm trying to find it sound a little bit more polished, and I like try to string it together. Code switching is a thing, and I'm guilty of it. But I think this particular person like would tease me about it and make it sound like I didn't know how to talk.
Mm.
And I did not appreciate that at all. I found it very disrespectful. I found it was pretty fucked up, to be honest. And because they also had their own way of speaking that I did not, uh, tease or make jokes about or anything like that, because I know everybody's different. I've always been aware of that. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, the schools that I went to, they were all very mixed. So we had like very like heavy like Latino population as far as students. We had a very heavy Asian population of students. We had a very heavy Black population of students, and so everybody kind of spoke very differently.
Mhm.
And everybody's different way of speaking. It just was one of those things that like you just didn't really tease people about because everybody kind of spoke different anyway. So I don't know, it kind of just put me in a bad place where I was just like, why is this happening?
So were you dating this person? Were you seeing them in a kind of romantic way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you feel like was that the deal breaker, or was there like a little bit of a period of time where you're like, okay, maybe I'll give this person a chance?
I gave them more of a shot than I would today. And I think it was because I was young and like very wanting of a relationship so bad that I was letting things slide that I should not have let slide.
Yeah.
And I mean, how old was I? I was probably like, I want to say like 23 or 24 or something like that. Still very young. So, about, I mean, more than 10 years now. But today, I would not let that shit slide at all. I just, like, the second that would happen, it wouldn't even need to be a conversation. I would just be like, this is not something I'm interested in. If you can't figure out why based on what you just said, then I don't need to,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, we don't need to even have a conversation about this because that's something that you just should know by a certain age.
Mhm.
And also like when I was like 23, 24, that person was actually older than me. So I felt like that they should have known better. But I mean, I was younger and I wish I would have known better back then because I would have put my foot down and walked out the door a lot sooner. So
Yeah, we honor the choices that our younger selves made. They had very limited information, but nothing for older.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had a time machine, I would go back and talk to little JoJo and have a very pointed conversation with him and let him know what is acceptable behavior and what is not. Um, yeah, but unfortunately, I cannot do that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
yeah. So, okay. So, relationship before, you met on Craigslist. Some people probably don't even remember that you could actually meet people on Craigslist like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then the apps, I remember the apps came out. I was probably like, I want to say Grindr came out in like 2008 or 2009 or something like that. It was like brand new,
Yeah.
like dating apps on the phones was like a brand new thing, and people were like excited about it, and like a new app was coming out every year.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the other long-term relationship that I had, I met through the apps.
Mhm.
Um uh and this is a meet cute story. So I was
Oh,
living in Sacramento. I want to say it's been a few months since I broke up with the previous partner.
okay.
And I was on the apps and I saw this guy and I thought, "Oh, he's cute." He was wearing in his profile photo, he was wearing a Star Trek shirt, like a Halloween costume of Star Trek. Um, Nerdy. Um, and so I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cute." And so I think the moment that I knew that, okay, maybe there is something here, is when I found myself kind of like putting more effort than usual,
Mhm.
right? So when you're giving sort of like 100% of your effort for the other person to like you, or you're sort of like being extra flirty, when you're really calculating about like how you're going to respond, when you say things that, uh, and I don't want it to mean like, oh, I'm being manipulative. It's more like you're presenting yourself in the best light. And that's what I did. And, you know, I can't remember what day of the week it was, but I was like, oh, I'm really craving donuts. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. And he lived in downtown Sacramento.
Okay.
And I said, I don't know what is open. And so he's like, I think there is a donut shop that's open late here in downtown. Why don't you come over and then we can walk over to it? And so I went downtown. we went to the donut shop, but turns out it's closed. And so we went to a yogurt shop, which I think was on L Street in like 16th or 17th. Um, we chatted, we connected, we had a good time. Um, we walked back to his place. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, we had hooked up. We hooked up on the first date.
Okay.
Um,
No shame in that.
yeah, I mean, hey, a lot of people in our community does it, and I don't think there's no shame in it.
Yeah.
There's no shame in it. Everybody has a choice. But yeah, I saw him again over and over again. Um, I think after a month or two, I got scared that it's like, oh my God, this is getting serious. Am I ready?
What made you
So
scared?
I think I was ready because, or I think I think what made me scared is that somebody could be kind of like that nice to me. Because for 3 years when I was with the previous partner, he was not very pleasant. There were times when like I was just angry, I was enraged. Um, that's kind of like when I started to find out that we were not a good match, is when I felt like I wasn't being myself anymore. That I was just this angry, sad person, this angry, sad version of myself, and I didn't know who I was. And so when this new person came in and they were nice and they had several green flags, I was like, oh my God, this is scary. I don't know that I can do this. And so I disappeared for like 2 months, I think. I stopped replying to texts. I made myself
No.
busy with work, um, busy with life, as a mid-20s person. And this is the way that we reconnected. Is he showed up to my place in South Sacramento. He had flowers.
Oh,
He had a card. He had written a card.
okay.
And then he also sent me an email. And so he was really trying to connect with me. He was really trying to kind of like build that bridge. Um, and then yeah, we started hanging out again. We kind of like restarted where we left off. And then there was a significant event in my life, and this was in I was still in the military then. I was still in the Air Force. Um, and then yeah, it caused a significant shift in my life, um, which for confidentiality's purpose, I will not mention in great detail. But it really made a huge impact in my life, and this person was there. And this person said was like, all right, you know, this is it. This is the shotgun. You know, we are together now because I want to be here for you
Yeah.
through that event of your life.
Yeah.
We were together when my mom passed away from colon cancer in 2014. We were together when they went to grad school. We were together when we were having a lot of like financial difficulties because I was working and working paycheck to paycheck. You were going to grad school. We don't know how we were going to support each other. We were living together. And yeah, I really loved this person, and I think the adversity and the challenges that we overcame, um, helped become a glue to make us really part of each other's lives.
Okay. I mean, so I've never been through that with a person before, but like that's what I kind of see in my head of like, because to me that's what it sounds like when you have a partner, right? I feel like that's the definition of a partner, is somebody that you are working together with in order to make something happen, and you guys are going through those things together, and it's like through thick and thin. I'm like, we're gonna figure out how to make this work. Um, with the, without all the shady stuff. Like people just kind of, some people just like throw in the towel. They're like, oh, I'm done with this. I don't want to deal with it. Yada yada, and they just kind of
Yeah.
go away.
Yeah.
Uh, and it doesn't sound like that happened with you. And I think that you are very fortunate, because I think even if you know you were to get with another person, you have that experience
Mhm.
and you have that ability to know that you've been through something like that and you can do it again because you've already done it before and you know what that feels like. Um, I don't.
Oh,
uh,
yeah, I mean, we were engaged too. We were engaged. He proposed to me. So yeah, my mother was diagnosed in 2014.
okay.
Um, Around October, we kind of just knew that it was not going to be uh that there was no going back because it was stage 4 colon cancer.
Yeah.
And so we had planned to my mother and I had planned to go to the Philippines because her dying wish was for her to kind of be with the rest of the family in the Philippines.
Okay.
And so this was in the beginning stages of what is that fundraising platform? GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Yeah.
Uh yeah, I raised money for her just to be able to go home. And it was December, a little bit before I had to go to the Philippines with my mother, and he proposed. We were in bed, and the song that played was Beyond the Sea from Finding Nemo. And so, yeah, I mean, that song has a special place in my heart. He has a special place in my heart. Um, but I think what made it really special is because we felt really right for each other at the
Yeah.
time. It was like we are not looking for anyone else. We are like, this is it. This is the forever one. We are going to be in each other's lives for a long time.
Yeah.
And even even after even after we had separated, I think we made this pact that we were going to be in each other's lives, regardless of kind of like whether we find significant others in the future. That we really committed to the idea that we were going to be family, whether we're together or not.
Yeah. I love that though, because I feel like sometimes people break up and they turn into different people. Um, and that's hard.
Yeah. I've met a lot of people that, when they break up, uh like the only way that they're able to cope with that loss of person, that the only way that they're able to kind of like really move on to the next stage of their life is by using that hatred, by using that anger, uh in order to push them to the next stage, which, in some ways I understand, and I do have resentments of my own. uh I and I think we're going to get to the open relationship part,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was one of the things that kind of contributed to it.
Okay.
But I yeah, I mean, as a mature person, I think hopefully,
Yeah.
I just I could not forget all of the good times that we spent together.
Yeah.
So um yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when me and my ex broke up, like I completely flipped out. That was still in my tragic ratchet phase back then. So I was just like kind of a hot mess and I didn't have the best temper or anything like that. And also I really like to get my own way. So I was a little selfish. It took me a while to really realize, like, people get mad, and so like you said, that people get mad, and that's the way that they cope with like those relationships and the losses and things like that. And I think that's probably what I did, um because I try to blame everything on everybody else, but I then started going to therapy and like realized the parts that I played in that and the things that I needed to fix within myself, and that everything was not his fault, everything was not, you know everybody else's fault. It's like, blame it on the friends, blame it on the partner, blame it on everybody else but you. And it's like, no, like, you have a part to play in this too. You screwed up and you cannot blame your actions on anybody else, because you've also like were the domino effect of like you started this, and then you know push people to go do things, and they do something, and then you get mad, but you're the one that started it. You know, it's like, and not taking accountability for your own stuff. Uh, you know, for every action there will be a reaction, and you might not like it, and so you have to be very careful about what you do and what you say because you can't take those things back. And I had to be very, very. I had to grow up a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Fine thing.
yeah. So, but I was able to, you know, I took it into my own hands, and I you know, forced myself to like go to therapy, and like I had a very, very tough therapist that gave me a lot of tough love and, you know, kind of put me in my place, which is what I needed. I didn't need somebody to coddle me or anything like that. I just needed somebody to just like tell me I was wrong and tell me why I was wrong and just kind of show me and help me realize it myself. And it ended up working out for me. Like I feel like I'm in a better place now. But then I got to a place where like I could actually be friends with my ex because I was so mad before, and then I was just like, you didn't even really have a real reason to be mad. Like it didn't work out. Like you just found a reason to get upset because it was easier to be mad at him than to try to be mature about it. You know. So anyway,
It's a coping mechanism. Get that. How
yeah.
long were you together with this person?
That is a complicated question. We started as a hookup, like friends with benefits situation, and that went on for like 6 months, and then we were dating for about a year, and then we were having issues. I want to say like, I guess you could say we weren't together. Um, for like 2 or 3 months after that, so altogether almost 2 years.
Oh,
Um, it's like a really complicated situation. I just like I don't know. I mean, he's a good guy. He is a good guy, and he's always been a good guy. But he's also a little bit older than me, and I think like his mentality was in a more mature mindset, and mine was not. And also, I don't have like, and I still don't have like a ton of relationship experience, but I've been more as I've gotten older. I've been more aware of like things that I do wrong, and also like able to take accountability for the shit that I do,
yeah.
because again, I can't blame it on other people. Like it's like, yeah, okay, I was being petty. If I was being petty, can I admit that I was being petty? Yes, I can admit it. Is it the right thing? No, it was. I was wrong, and I was being petty because I don't know, mad or whatever it was. And is it
Oh,
right? It's not right.
it is hard. Yeah, to get to the crux of kind of like what you want to know, there when we moved to San Francisco, and actually honestly before that, you know, when we were figuring out the dynamics of our relationship, obviously we were presented with the difficult question of like, okay, do we want a close relationship? Do we want an open relationship?
At
Uh,
what time was like this? Like how far in?
Maybe around 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Uh, uh, you know, it's inevitable. I think when we're around in the gay community, like when you're surrounded by just like all of these gorgeous men, by all these gorgeous folks, uh, you're you're gonna be tempted. You're
Yeah.
going to come up to a situation where you're going to have to ask yourself and your significant other sort of like what you're going to do when you're presented with this temptation. And there were, I think, like I'm not a saint either. I made a lot of mistakes. Um, I think, and I there are a lot of I've met a lot of people that share this experience where it's like it starts with cheating,
Mhm.
and then that leads to the conversation of like, well, I don't want to lose you, so obviously we have to have a conversation about like what kind of dynamic we're gonna have. Do we want an open relationship so that way we don't have to have this sort of like this expectation that we're going to be faithful for each other and then we're not morally strong enough to commit to that expectation. And so the good compromise is to have an open relationship. And I was bad. I was bad, and I was doing things outside of the agreement
Okay.
of our relationship.
How did
And
you so I'm curious because like I feel like every couple has their own agreements and like guardrails, right? And so how do you come up with those? Like, is it just a discussion or like do they evolve over time?
I've heard from a lot of people where they're like, there are some that would codify it. They would write up a contract,
Oh, okay.
get things down. Sometimes they would do so in the presence of a therapist or a counselor, um, which is what we did. One of the things that we did. But for many people, you have to have that difficult conversation with the other person to kind of like, well, I'm not okay with this, or these are the things that I'm okay with. Um, these are the things that are permissible. I've heard some things where um, one person, say for example, would be like, okay, well, I'm okay with you having sex with the other person, but you cannot kiss.
Okay.
Or they would be like, you can have sex, but you must do so with a condom only.
Okay. I've heard that.
Or you can have sex, but I must be there. So they are only playing as a couple.
Okay. I've also
I've
heard that.
heard I've heard some people who are like, you can't do it with any of my close friends.
I've heard that rule too.
Yeah, you can only do it when you're outside of town. You can only do it if this person is, for sure I'm not going to meet them. There are some that it's like, okay, I have to meet them first, and then that's when I'll let you kind of play with them. Uh, there are some people that I've heard, these are the only things that you can do. You can't do like BDSM stuff. Um, so there's really a lot that you can negotiate, but that is the key word, right? Is that you have to negotiate what you're okay with. Um, I know that for me personally, um, one of the things that really drove me nuts is when the other person is also Asian.
Oh,
I
okay.
had, yeah, yeah. This was when I was young and immature, and I had this like unchecked self-loathing because when I was growing up, I've always felt not good enough. And then when I moved to the United States, like like excuse me, you want to celebrate me for something that I cannot control? You want to celebrate me for being Asian? Like hell yeah. But then when a situation arises and the other person is attractive because of that particular quality, you're like, oh my God, a threat. And so yeah, there were moments where I really went crazy because of kind of like those unchecked situations. But I think for me, one of the biggest challenges is really that jealousy.
Yeah.
For a lot of couples that I met as well, I think one of the things that they struggle with is kind of like that jealousy, whether or not they're explicit about it or not. Um, I met a couple recently where, they are a successful couple. They've been together for a long time. They play separately, sometimes together. They've met a lot of people that they're happy to hook up with. But, sometimes there are subtle ways that they take jabs at each other that, if given the right devices, they might stab each other for it. But I kind of looking back at it now, one of the things that I learned is that you're you're really gonna have to take note of the things that trigger you.
Mhm.
Because if you put yourself in that situation where those triggers could come up, like they will compromise the relationship. And if this relationship is important enough to you, and if you love this person enough, then you have to prioritize the relationship over the needs. You know, there were moments before when people would ask me this question and they say, "Oh, is it because you're not getting enough sex? Is it because you're not happy?" And, you know, my answer has varied. You know, I was happy in my relationship, but I think all relationships they do get tested. They go through all sorts of challenges that all relationships go through.
Yeah.
And I think what really matters is how important is this person enough to you? Because if like if you are going to go through this particularly challenging and murky situation, if you don't love them enough, then you probably should just like cut it off before you put yourself under a lot of that stress. So
Yeah. I mean, I feel like some people can't admit to their jealousy. Like I've met open couples like we don't get jealous. But I'm like, I've physically seen you show jealous behavior, but I guess those particular people that I'm talking about, like they don't identify it as jealousy. It's identified as concern or, protection. They're being protective or something like that. Uh, and I find that very interesting because I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but like it shows up in a specific area of the relationship, and that is the only area that it's showing up. And I really feel like it's jealousy. But some people don't want to call it that because it's like not a sexy word. You know what I mean? Like nobody wants to be jealous, but it's a very normal human emotion that everybody has. And if you recognize it, then you can fix it and you can kind of tame that versus like ignoring it and calling it something else. I don't know. I just think it does everybody a better service if they just identify emotions for what they are.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can argue sort of like what word we want to call it, but if it makes you feel a particular way, you know, and then you take actions based on those feelings, particularly like negative actions, um, you don't have to call it anything.
Yeah.
You're sabotaging your own relationship, and you're calling it a certain word that you're uncomfortable with. So
Do you feel well? Like, so when you first started the open situation, because you guys were together for a while, so like 3 or 4 years in, and like how did it start okay? Like, or was it? I know you mentioned like there was some jealousy on some areas and things like that, but I'm curious like how it evolved and like how did you come to terms? Like, were you able to kind of squash that jealousy factor in a sense, or did things still kind of linger?
I think I think all of the above. There were moments when I can kind of like think more critically and I can control my emotions. When, I am encouraging, I see, here's the thing. It's like when you're in an open relationship and you see that the other person does want to, like, say, for example, have sex with another person that they are attracted to and the other person is attracted to them, the the difficult decision that you will have to make is do I want to encourage this? Do I want my partner to be happy and have this experience? And I think there were moments when I was not mature enough to kind of like understand that that is what I need to be doing as a supportive partner.
Mm.
But in those moments when I feel like, okay, I'm thinking clearly, I do wish the best for him. I want him to enjoy and be supportive of it. In fact, there were moments when we were living together and I would literally like leave the apartment to make space for him so that he could have a good experience with the other person. Um, but then at the same time, like I feel a particular resentment towards it. And so it's this kind of like really murky situation where it's like you were supportive, but then if you're feeling that kind of jealousy or resentment, then like are you really truly being supportive? Right?
Yeah, that's fair. I think most of the times, like I mean, I've hooked up with people that are in open relationships. Most of the time, one of them will come to my house, um, they're not allowed to host like within their own space or that kind of thing, where the other person is not there. And I always wondered how that worked too, because like, okay, it's the weekend, and like, are you guys both home, like that kind of thing, like what's going on? And I don't want to get in nobody's business because I'm like, okay, that's totally gonna kill the vibe, so I'm just not gonna ask. Um, but it's always interesting. I don't know, especially like being the single person interacting with the open couple.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, now that I mean honestly, like now as a single person, when I'm on the apps, I have my filter settings to just single.
Me too.
I don't have anything against people who are in open relationships, but I think it's just, there are other fish in the sea who deserve, love like they do. And we should support people in their choices, but it doesn't mean that, we have to be the one to support it.
Yeah, I literally, so the episode that's gonna post before this one, we were talking about, I was talking to my friend, and we were talking about dating apps and like how different apps like have different filters, and like how they have like premium functions and they charge for certain things, and like some of the features for the filters that you want are hidden behind a paywall, so you have to actually pay for like a premium subscription to like find the people that are the right sex position, or find the people that are the right age group, or find people that are only single, because it's like flooded with so many people. And that can be kind of tough sometimes, because I feel like in the queer community it's really hard, um, because you never know who's doing what from where and what people's preferences are. And I feel like men can be very finicky and picky in particular about things, and um it just gets really complicated.
It does. It does. Yeah, it's I've been single now for like a year and a half, and it because of the relationships that I've had and the lessons that I've learned from it, I think I became a little bit more picky about like how I want to not just meet people, but also like the kind of story that I want to build with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious, are you open to doing another open relationship, or would you prefer something more monogamous this time around?
That's a very good question. Um, which I have been thinking of since you presented this idea to me. And the answer is, I err on the I err on the side of monogamy.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I'm closed off from open relationship,
Yeah.
but I think, oh, this is the thing that I realized is that it's not so much the monogamy versus open relationship label. I think if we take our relationship out of those particular labels, we will have more success if we said, okay, is this really the kind of narrative that I want to build with this person?
Mhm.
So, because as soon as we put in this label that is like, okay, this is an open relationship, we welcome all of these assumptions about what an open relationship should be.
Mhm.
But I think that if we focus instead on the kind of story that you and your partner are trying to build, regardless of what label you put on it, you know that you're working towards something.
Yeah.
You'll know that ultimately that you are in this goal of creating a partnership that will last. Even if you had an open relationship, even if you were, even if you were having sex with other people, if you do so in a way that kind of like really benefits the relationship, I think that's much better than like putting on a label on it and saying like, well, all of these other unknowns are now included in our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I used to be like very anti open relationships, and like now it's like I'm not like that anymore. I would try it, but my whole thing is that is not my default.
Yeah.
It is, I want a monogamous relationship. I want my own person. I want somebody that I can grow with and learn with and be with, and like again, build that partnership that we were talking about earlier. Um, if it grew into that, it would have to be a natural development. It wouldn't be something that somebody's like pushing for. And I've seen situations where somebody's partner is just being very pushy about trying to force it in that direction instead of it naturally happening. And then it kind of blows up in their face because there was like some type of ulterior motive for them to want to do that. It's like, okay, well, there was this person that I've been eyeing that I'm trying to, and now I'm just trying to get permission to do it, or like they're not happy, and so they're using it as a band-aid. It's not like a natural progression. It's not an open and honest conversation. The foundation is already fractured, and they're just trying to do patchwork instead of actually fix it, and it sucks. But I think people, if when those things do happen, I've also seen people learn from those situations where, and I kind of just compare it to like when I was talking about that guy who was like, oh, but like trying to box me into a friendship like out of other things, and like you're making the choice for me, and I'm like, no, like I want to make my own choice. And people have learned to make their own choices and not have somebody make it for them, and I think that that's important because it is a partnership, so you still have to be able to make that decision together, otherwise it ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it got me a little worked up.
No, I mean, it is, I think there is a statistic that I think it was like one of six people or one of six couples get cheated on or something.
Oh wow.
I don't know the actual statistic, but cheating and having sex with other people outside of your relationship is not a normal thing. It's not an abnormal thing.
No.
It has been happening and it has happened before. But the thing is like it can do so much damage in a relationship.
Mhm.
And when a relationship is something that you are really invested in, when you're invested in your person, if you don't tread carefully, and if you do things outside of the agreement of the relationship, it hurts, it sucks, and you spend years, sometimes decades, kind of like healing from that damage. And so I don't I think part of my hesitation in like jumping into a relationship is I don't want to have to go through that again.
Mhm.
I'm afraid that, I will invest myself emotionally in someone and then I'd end up getting hurt and then I'd be back here. And then I will go through this period again where like I have to kind of like pick myself back up. And that I think we could avoid it as much as possible if the people entering in a relationship are aware of the responsibility
Mhm.
in the relationship that they are creating, because it's not just time, it's money, it's a social network,
Yeah.
it's hopes and dreams, it's the way that you see your life and your existence. Those things you merge together when you are in a relationship,
Mhm.
right? And so when something does not go well, it feels like you're shaking the foundation to your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, honestly, like I kind of practice with my friends in a way where it's like, as far as like communication goes, as far as like financial things goes, like for example, like if I go on a vacation with my friends and like we're splitting costs of things or whatever it is, it's like, okay, like how would I do this in a way that is like communicating effectively? How am I gonna communicate my frustration to my friend? How am I gonna communicate my anger or disappointment or those types of things? Because I haven't been like in a situation consistently where I've been dating. Like I date and I meet people and we date for a little while and it may not work out and it hasn't worked out, but I still will always have friends that I still have relationships with, and they're not romantic relationships, but I think that it's still a way to kind of practice those skills of a partnership, with your friend, and just like I'm gonna have to be able to learn how to communicate and be around these people that are special to me, that I value, that I want in my life. But like, how do I keep that going without letting some stupid thing like happen? And granted, I'm not having sex with my friends, So that's a different piece of it, but I think even just like kind of those baseline skills is helpful. Uh, like when I always say when, not if, but when I meet my man.
Oh, it will happen. Well, I can't say that 100%, but it I think we need to be open to the possibility that those things could happen to us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm optimistic. Like, I don't think it'll never. I mean, I get dates and I go on dates and I hang out. Like, chances are, like, I'm gonna hit the lottery someday. Like, I just gotta keep doing it, and then it'll eventually happen.
Yeah, I miss him in various ways. I miss my ex in various ways. The one that I was with the longest for 11 years. Um, because when we were together, like we would be like, "Do you feel like cooking today?" No, I don't feel like cooking today. We should just order out or we should go somewhere. Um, and so I miss that. I miss having pets with him. We had a cat and a dog. We were, I think we're still each other's emergency contacts, to be honest. Um, we we had this habit of going to his family in Sacramento. The rest of my family is in the Philippines, so like he gets kind of like a one sided a one sided experience. But it I miss kind of like the small ways in which we are intertwined because I feel like I am a different person. Like the Brian that you see here, there's a different version when this Brian was with this partner.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of aspects about that Brian that I really, really enjoyed. But, when ultimately when we broke up, it was really trying to make space for the person that I could be, for my own version of happiness.
Yeah.
Um, in this, I'll share with you kind of like the biggest heartache for me. Um, so in my entire 17 years here in the United States, I've only gone home to the Philippines twice.
Okay.
Once when my mother died of colon cancer, and then the other one was 2023 when like after the pandemic kind of settled down and we were able to go internationally. Now this was, during a period where we were already in an open relationship. And he was talking to some guys in the Philippines and kind of um, entering an emotional attachment with them. Uh, so the coming home for me was very special because I have never taken home anybody to the Philippines. My family has not met anybody that I've dated. I've never been able to show my childhood home or my high school or my old stomping grounds. Nobody from the United States has ever met like my friends. They've never met my brother personally or my nephew. I've never taken them to the provinces where my father's side of the family is. And so this was very special for me, this trip. Um, but I don't think he saw it that way.
Okay.
Um, it felt to me like the priority for him was, you know, wow, I'm going to the Philippines for the first time. At the same time, I have these guys that I'm talking to. And so that for me, that for me was like the biggest red flag because I think, our relationship has entered into this phase where we were unable to recognize the kind of depth that we wanted from each other.
Yeah.
I remembered we were in a rental car and we were passing by my childhood home, which, I cannot enter anymore because somebody else lives in there. Um, and I was like, could you take a video of that house for me? And it was like the most um unaffectionate video that I have ever seen. And it was just, I was like, this is not important for you, is it? And so that kind of difference, that shift from where we were loving each other, where we were connected at the hip, when we were kind of like really in love, when we were almost married, to this state of the relationship. I think that's when I knew, okay, this is no longer the relationship that is filling my cup.
That sounds frustrating.
And I really try to give him a lot of leeway for it, because it's like, he has his own objectives, he is his own person. But I think that is when I knew that, like, okay, you need to think about yourself in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said how long have you been single now?
About a year and a half.
Okay. And how's that going?
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm focusing on kind of like new ventures. I'm focusing on myself.
Yeah.
They kind of like building a solid network that support me in various ways. I mean, it can be sad sometimes. I still, every now and then, there's, something would come up, like a song that would kind of like trigger the sadness or the feeling of loneliness. And I think that's okay. But for the most part, I do my best to be happy where I can.
I mean, you got a big smile on your face when you said it was going good. So, yeah.
Hey, yeah, it's, we, God is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
God is good.
Are you, I'm currently not using like online dating at the moment. Um, is that like, are you going back to that? Are you just like meeting people in person? I feel like, I mean, you live in San Francisco. I mean, I feel like we switched places. You moved there, then I moved up here, but
Yeah, but now
um,
we're kind of like in the same city.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I do still have one app, um, kind of like I mentioned, like the filter settings,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
set it to just single. Um, I am, I'm slowly kind of like admitting outwardly that I'm single.
Okay.
I don't know whether that is an unconscious way of saying like, hey, I would love to date, but I think that is my kind of subtle way of saying that, like, I'm open to the possibility, but I'm not I'm not rushing for it, because I think I'm happy where I am. I'm happy with my challenges, I'm happy with my struggles, but I'm also kind of enjoying where I am at.
Yeah, that's fair. I also don't rush it. Um, I don't know. I feel like I've gotten very comfortable with my alone time and I'm very comfortable with me and liking myself and like being able to spend time alone. Um, so in order for me to like be with another person, I definitely don't want to lose like my peace. So they have to kind of be able to like add to that, or if it stays the same, that's great too. But I just want to be able to like maintain the level of peace that I've been able to attain because I was not always a very peaceful person.
Yeah.
So this is like a happy space for me, and I just want to be able to continue that as I get older because I don't miss all the chaotic crap I used to do. Um,
I will give you two pieces of advice that I
mhm,
think be really helpful. Not just for you and for your listeners, but I think for myself as well. The first one comes from Eat, Pray, Love.
mhm,
And this is the advice that Kitut, the sort of sage in Bali, that Liz Gilbert visits. And he says, part of life is that instability sometimes. So, sometimes in life you do get out of balance, and that is kind of part of the dance of life. And so even though sometimes it scares me to like meet people and kind of emotionally invest in someone, I know that that's part of it. I can't There will come a time when I will fall in love, and it might hurt, but that is the joy of being alive.
Yeah.
Which ties to tip number two, and this is from Stephen Sondheim's Company. Um, One of his titular songs is called "Being Alive," and I think one of the points of the musical is really to say that you know being alive has its challenges, because the main character of Company is originally written as this man who is celebrating, I think, his 37th birthday. And everybody's, all of his friends are coupled, they're having kids, and everybody's like, when are you getting married? Like, time is a ticking, Bobby. Um, and so he goes through this kind of like existential crisis of like, okay, well, what if I find someone and then like it doesn't work out? Like, what is all this for? Like, dear friends of mine that are in couples, like, what are we doing this for? Like, you seem to be unhappy in your relationship. You seem to have a lot of headaches with your children. And so like, what is this for? And in that song, he makes the argument that what we really strive for is company. It's company. And it's, this life where we are born and we die by ourselves. We hunger for somebody to share this scary yet joyful life. And so I think as we go into the future and we navigate the dating scaries, I think staying true to that mantra, that what we are looking for is somebody to enjoy this life with, I think that will not lead us astray.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree on, I mean, especially the second part. I think for me, I want someone to build something with and like be able to connect with somebody with. And I'm fully aware, like I want to hold on to my peace, but as much as I want to, I know that I can be a very petty person. I know that, I mean, I still like, I've been on this, like, I cuss a whole lot more than I normally would. I'm just like, I'm trying to like keep it together for you, Brand. You know?
Be yourself, baby.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it together for you because I think there's times like where I go off the rails like with that like chaos, you know what I mean? And it's still there, but then I'm also able to rein it back in. It's not like when I was a kid where, or I won't say a kid, but like when I was like in my early 20s and just kind of going off and doing all these crazy things and like not able to get back on track, like showing up to work late, like excess drinking all the time and partying and all the things and like not being responsible. And I think as I've gotten older, I'm very aware of my responsibilities and trying to balance the fun factor and like maybe let's call it controlled chaos. In order to still have all the fun but also be able to manage my responsibilities and hopefully find somebody that I can find that can also balance that and not be like too strict or rigid but also like not like strict or rigid and like boring or like but also like not all like party fun everything all the time. I don't like to be the responsible one all the time. Like sometimes I just want to sit back and chill.
Yeah, I mean, part of negotiating the relationship is negotiating whether, your significant other can have sex with other people.
Yeah.
And I get how big a role that plays in a relationship. But I think if you're going to negotiate that, or if you're going to want that in a relationship, what about all these other good things that we could have? Like,
Yeah.
are you going to make space for that too?
Mm,
So, yeah.
for sure. Brian, I miss you.
I miss you. That, the last time we saw each other was literally on the street where we hugged each other and said hello for like 20 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty bad. Uh, I don't know, but I feel like I've known you for a really long time, and I've always thought you were like a cool person, you know? I feel like we should reconnect.
Love that. Yeah. We live in the same city now.
Yeah.
I have to have another person sort of mediating.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get together soon. And I don't know, maybe if you want to do this again, maybe we can do another episode together.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, friends, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please let me know. And we will continue next week with another episode regarding love and dating and relationships and all of that. And if you think somebody needs to listen to this episode, please make sure that you share it with them. And as always, stay Black, stay queer, and if you're neither, please stay unapologetic. See you next time. Bye.